So what we're going to cover today, not in this order, in the order of how important I think it is marketing and marketing mix, market research, marketing techniques, and tools for entrepreneurs. We're going to talk a lot about guerrilla marketing. If you haven't heard about guerrilla marketing, well, then obviously you didn't read this chapter. The book Guerrilla Marketing is pretty easy to read, and I highly recommend it. We'll also talk about branding. If you consider yourself a creative type, then that will be the part for you. And marketing strategy and the marketing plan. So basically, your marketing strategy is what you do. The marketing plan is a formal document, which you are in your major excitement going to write today. And then sales and customer service. So that's what we're going to cover today. Now, in short, marketing is finding people who want your product and convincing them to hand over their money. Now, in some companies, in some books, they'll talk about sales and marketing as being two distinct operations. And if you are Microsoft, if you are Coca-Cola, they are, right? Because marketing is the people who develop brand awareness, they get you to know about the company or the product, they get you to think that this is a good idea. And sales are the people who actually convince you to hand over the money. They're the ones that are calling up on if you're Coca-Cola, they're the ones that are calling on the stores like 7-Eleven and convincing them to buy 70 crates of Coca-Cola. As a small business, though, you're probably going to do sales and marketing and 11 other jobs. So in bigger companies, they're two separate functions, but for you, they're not. So with marketing, we're building brand awareness, we're getting our product or service in the channels. I was looking at your business model canvases, and you had a lot of ideas about who you could contact. Some of you did not have enough ideas about who you could contact, so we'll help you out with that. So in building awareness, we used to talk about the 4 Ps: product, promotion, price, and place. And I say all the time that one of the things that I want is when you graduate from here, no one says, hey, I'm a degree. If you say something, you should know things like somebody mentions the 4 Ps. So product, promotion, price, and place. So we'll go those. And that's what marketing is generally considered. And now they've added 3 more Ps now that we have a lot of online sales. And sales, so marketing builds up leads. People who are aware of you, and maybe you have their phone number, their text message, you can contact them. Sales is actually converting those leads into profits. So convincing the buying public to buy. And you are probably going to be both sales and marketing, and probably also finance and janitorial. Now, I may have mentioned this before because it's the story I tell all the time, and this is where you should be smarter than me. There's a big difference between marketing for a large corporation and marketing for a startup. And I'm trying to save you a mistake because lots and lots of people that I know who have small businesses, including me, made this exact same mistake. You have a company, it says educational technology. So we go to a big company, we hired a sales guy, and he came from Mifflin, one of the big software publishers, and we're telling somebody about this, who runs a microbrewery, also a small business, right? And he says, before we get to the story, he says, guy didn't sell a thing, did he? And I'm like, no, it was a disaster. And he says, I know, because we did the same thing. We hired a guy from Anheuser-Busch. And there's a huge difference between going out and selling for a company that everybody knows. I mean, not you, because you all, spend your weekends when you're not here reading the Bible and candlelight to save electricity. But there are people who drink beer, and they don't know who Anheuser-Busch is, right? Where nobody had heard of our friends, little microbrewery. So hiring somebody with a lot of track record from a big company is not necessarily what you want to do. And the reason is there are a whole bunch of differences between traditional marketing for a big company and marketing as an entrepreneur. And for you, I would say I agree with a lot of stuff in the book, which makes sense because I picked it and I read the whole book first. And this is one of those things where I do agree with a lot of it. That in traditional marketing, like the people who came from Anheuser-Busch, the people who came from Pearson, they have a lot more resources. So when you come in,
and you're trying to convince people to buy beer, to go to this grocery store. We've heard of Ralph's, we've heard of Gelson's or Sprouts, where if you've got a company nobody's ever heard of, it's a different situation. In the larger companies, whether it's Microsoft and Coca-Cola, you're always being reminded of it. You see advertising all the time, you see Google ads, you see it on TV, where you're coming in and saying, hey, I have this new organization. And the first response people have been, not saying it. So you've got to find some way to, first of all, develop awareness. Your biggest obstacle, when people say, my brand has no competitors, my idea has no competitors. Your biggest competitors, people want to keep their money. And your biggest obstacle is no one's ever heard of you. Or when people say, I want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement, I just laugh. But it's pretty clear that you're clueless because no one's heard of you, no one's stealing your idea. So this is one of the big issues we have to do as a new company is figure out how am I going to get people to know that I exist. Oops. So there's a bunch of things that you can do. Now remember, you probably don't have a lot of money, right? You don't have $100 million marketing budget. Some of the things we did very early on, I went on every podcast I could possibly go on. In fact, I'm on a podcast at 10 o'clock tonight after I leave here. They're in England, so it's some reasonable outcome. YouTube, that was a fairly English thing we started. Social media is not nearly as effective as it used to be because 10 years ago, not everybody and their brother had an Instagram account. The companies didn't have them, so it was a lot easier to get attention. Also, now those companies have algorithms that determine what's shown to people. So if you have 13 million followers, it doesn't mean when you tweet something out, 13 million see it. So that is an option. Flyers, that's something you can do because it's fairly cheap. Print them out and go hand them out to everybody you know. Depending on what your business is, a power might be. If you're advertising, I know Afton was talking about new e-work class, so that would be a good place. Email. When we started out, we emailed everybody we knew and said, hey, we're starting this new company. Do you know anybody who's a teacher? And your marketing strategy is going to depend on the product. So for us, since we were doing educational software, it made a lot of sense for us to go to all kinds of educational conferences. Well, where are the people that buy your products? You know, I mean, Albert, you're looking at a store, right? So your target market is younger people, right? 18. Where are you going to find them?
I would say social media, but as well, right here, it says your marketing strategy depends on your product. So I would say interaction is the best way. Okay, so what shirt would you guys prefer? This black one or this white one? And on social media, you could do something like a poll. You can have a poll. Okay, so which one would you guys prefer in store, white or black? And then they interact with it.
Yes. And it sounds funny, but I worked with a client who they did tribal vocational rehabilitation. And they were concerned that they didn't get enough younger people. And if you don't know, brokerage account helps people get jobs that have disabilities, or keep a job with disability. And they wanted to get students coming out of high school in their first job that maybe had a disability connected permanently and everything. So the brilliant thing that they did, their reservation, their basketball team won the state championships. Now we're in North Dakota where there's not a lot to do in North Dakota, it's cold, right? So they're inside, a basketball's big thing there. And most of the tribal schools are fairly small. So for them to win was a huge deal. So what the director of the rehab program did is they sponsored the basketball team. Bought them all shirts that said the name of the basketball team and all the players, and then the phone number for their tribal book rehab program. And of course, I can't tell you how many kids I saw when I went to high school there, no shoes. Yeah, it's in your marketing budget.
You need to tell your investors that that's what your strategies are going to be. Or...
Yeah, but part of our strategy would be promotion through, say, intertribal sports. And you stole my thing I was going to say later on. But I'm thinking, no, but I'm thinking you're aiming at younger people particularly. I mean, your brother's pretty involved in your tribal sports. I don't know very much about them, except that youth sports are something that smaller businesses tend to support, because if they want community support, who is going to pay more attention to what's going on in the community than parents, right? Because their kids are there and their kids are involved in sports.
I think the students, what I'm thinking, it would target more of the high schoolers,
Mhm.
because those are the ones that are gonna be coming up in college.
And they're also the ones that are going to come get snacks. Oh, seriously.
So are we talking about sponsorships then?
Yeah, that would be one way, depending on, like I said, depending on your marketing strategy. So I was gonna say, well, then my other company was a statistical consulting company. And people are not seeing you online and signing up for $40,000 worth of statistical consulting and customized software. So, I mean, that makes me an evil person, but I did not sponsor youth sports with that company. I know, I'm evil, but with 7th generation games, we did, because we wanted to get the schools and we want the teachers to know about us. So it depends what your product is. I mean, you're talking about HVAC, right? But maybe that is something where you want to sponsor some of these programs because you're targeting individual homeowners, right? So it depends on what your product is. I would not, for you, Albert, I probably wouldn't be sponsored in some nursing homes.
They're gonna be covered in some nice clothes.
I guess, maybe that's a good marketing strategy. Grandma should look cool too.
Yeah. Grandson's visiting. Where'd you get that, Grandma? Yeah.
So when you say sponsorship, I had put local sponsorships with the high schools with the store logo.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
how many,
absolutely.
like, high?
Well, that goes back to, see, you're jumping in my
Sorry.
advancing it. No, that's all right.
When I get going, girl, I gotta get going around.
That goes into identifying what's your target market, right? So if you don't think that people 20 miles down the road are going to come to your store, then maybe you're not going to, like, for sure, if I was the same store, I wouldn't be putting any money to LA market. I mean, you might get a few people coming in from LA, but not too many. I mean, I'm the only crazy person who drives in Santa Monica, right? Were you gonna say something, Jay?
So is the sponsorship more so to be generous to the community, or more so to attach you to something that's flourishing? Kids are doing well, you're getting your product on a design that's being worn by the youth, that's
Yeah,
showing your name, as well as providing something for the kids that have money.
I would say yes to both. I mean, yes, I want to help the community, but truthfully,
It's your marketing strategy.
exactly, because you have to make a payroll every 2 weeks. So I'm investing in things like intertribal sports. If I'm a store for the community, that I want those high school kids maybe know about college and come to college, where I'm not investing in sponsoring daycare that's 20 miles away, because that's not really my target market.
Would it be a long stretch if you were to like do like stickers and a pencil or a notepad with your logo?
Yeah,
To like
it'd be a long
LA
stretch.
area or down. You know, like, that's like stretching.
No, actually, those are part of promotion, so those be promotional items.
When I was in LA just 2 days ago, I see Morongos freaking out there in LA. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell are you doing out here? And to be honest, it was in like China. That's who they promote to. I get a lot of China.
Well, you know who I see a lot of, at least on the upper Midwest powers, is people from Germany. You know, they laugh, we all laugh, that's crazy.
I've seen
Love
their mock
America.
powwows. Yeah, they do their mock powwows in Germany, where they got all these people out there, they're dancing around the drum, they got their regalia on.
See, there you go, there's your market.
What are these people doing? You see salmon rolls up there in Vegas? Yes.
So now you get all kinds of ideas on where you could market. So with us, so here's a couple of different options. We do lots and lots and lots of meetings. So we sell education software, we go to conferences, we have a website, we have social media, we have Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, probably some things like that. We're a mailing list with thousands of people on it. Everybody that ever meet that has anything to do with education, I get their email address. We do webinars, and our annual marketing budget is about $80,000 a year. So there's just one of the webinars that we did. Just to give you an idea. So this gives you some idea of the amount of media that we would do. So these are just the things that came out recently. So there were 2 podcasts in September. There's 1, 2, 3. 3 things that we were on in August, and this one was carried by NPR, so it was on 42 different markets. Here's something in the Southwest Connector. Here's another podcast. Here's an article in the newspaper. So here, there you could see we're doing a significant amount of media, right? Let me show you my other company. And you all will laugh at it, but this is the marketing for the jewelry group. That's it. That's all the marketing. I haven't updated that website in a year. And you might think that that company hadn't made millions of dollars, but you would be wrong about that. Because the point is you're looking at marketing matching your product. So all that stuff, all those P's, I haven't got into it, but so the jewelry group, we customize software, databases, statistical analysis, and my annual marketing budget is about $60. Pays for the website, it pays for the website hosting, and every couple of years making this funds. Because like I said, somebody doesn't say, oh, you had a really good viral tweet. Let me sign up to have you do evaluation for me for $40,000 a year, and whether or not I get my $3 million grant, we're going to depend on that, because I really like your Instagram live. So depending on what your market is, what your product is, your marketing budget and your marketing strategy is going to differ significantly. So in this case, I'm going to software conferences where people who could maybe write a check for a lot of money to me, and they're paying my way there, because if I'm in front of people speaking, I'm more likely to get that attention of the guy who can write the check. And if you're going to a conference that costs your company $5,000 for you to go to, you're probably at the level where you can cut those checks. So who are the people that are going to be able to give you money? Now, if it's kids after school, it'd be a huge waste of time to be going to software conferences. So this is not a rhetorical question, it's a serious question. Where would you market your business? Like you're doing beadwork and stuff like that, right? So I didn't mix you up with your cousin 10 points for me. So you're gonna market in this general area, right? Within say 30 miles or 60 miles or what? So, did you make that?
What, this,
Yeah.
no. My friend is-
Okay, I put you in the press now, go ahead.
Like, no.
So you're gonna market, so you're gonna be within 30 miles or 60 miles?
I don't know, I'd say 60 miles. Because it would be local, either in Banning and Beaumont, the store location.
So that already narrows down your marketing plan a little bit, right? You're not advertising the LA Times, save you a lot of money. Victoria, so where are you going to be marketing? Where are you going to be drawing your clients from?
Well, I'm doing a healing, well, it's a center for transitional home.
Right, but it's not going to be everybody in the world, right?
No,
So is it
it's not for-
people in this county?
Yes,
three
it's
county
for
area?
Indigenous women who are seeking transitional homes in the Riverside, San Bernardino County area by Anza towards like Paula. That's where I'm looking at land over there. That's not close to a lot, so I don't have to get so many like zoning and all that stuff.
So once you've narrowed down your geographic area to start with, then you could start identifying what your marketing plans. If you're only in Beaumont, Riverside County, then you're only advertising there. As far as demographics, you're not looking for everybody in that county. Like Andre, obviously you're looking at people who own homes, right? Or own property. Because I'm not paying for HVAC for my place to be fixed. If I'm renting it, I have to pay. The landlord pay for it. But seriously, so you look at people who own property. If Leanna's looking at a grocery store, I mean, what demographics? And I have suspicion, but let's see, who buys groceries? Who goes in and buys groceries?
I want to market to the tribal members, but then also I want to catch the snowbirds and go out to work.
I don't know. I mean, does everybody know? I mean, I come from everybody eats, but some families, like my dad, his thing was my mom did all the work. And I know a lot of men like that. He went to work, he came home. So I wonder if it's more women. Like one of the reasons we're on Pinterest is I know that Pinterest is 80% women. And what are teachers? Disproportionately women. And there's a lot of teachers on Pinterest. And I don't know. This is not a rhetorical question. I don't know if it's mostly moms that go and buy groceries. I know I had children at home and my lazy children never went off and bought groceries. It was always me. And my husband might, but so there's probably a certain.
Sometimes I see guys out there buying groceries, but it's usually the guys that are getting together to like go fishing for the day. You know what I mean? They get their sandwich stuff together or their meat together and they're getting all their stuff together to go do that at the river. So I'm thinking, but it probably would be mostly women and families and elders and then some guys.
But that could also be a separate marketing strategy, right? Like, I don't know, put things up at work, I don't know, big shops or whatever.
Yeah.
And say, here, go get all your snacks here, go get all your healthy stuff here. Well, you look at who is buying groceries, you might send things home. If who's focused, you're very focused on healthy food, right? Who cares a lot about healthy food? Moms and kids. I used to get a lot of stuff like that home in the preschool packets that they sent home. So you're looking at start off with what's the physical area, and then secondly, who are the people demographically? Like if you have a house, you're more likely to be buying, paying for HVAC, and then interest. So I don't know. It's mostly women to be with. I mean, I know a few guys that do, but mostly women. Or am I totally wrong? Okay.
I was like, I know from my area, my husband and all that they do a lot of things.
That would be a good place to sell to. I think I should connect. No, we're serious. That's one of the advantages
I
of going
do
to
have
school.
an idea for her. It's where the people that are incarcerated, the males or women, you know how you put money on their books?
Yeah.
Well, if you offer them to get like beads, the beadwork and stuff, and then put it on their books, so they generate their own money. You know what I mean? But you be that primary source by putting it like on Instagram or any social sites, because they'll buy it, because I did that for my husband. He wasn't doing the beading, but some people that don't get the camera, so they need money, and it's hard for them in there too. So that's another thing, and that's income right on the source, because they'll get it done as long as you supply the beads. But sometimes tribal resources will supply it for them.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about channels like business to consumer and expertise business to business. So that's kind of business to government. But yeah, you could sell a bunch that way, right? Go in and be their supplier.
Like their vendor.
Mm-hmm. Like an Albert selling really cool stuff. If you're in a very conservative evangelical community, I don't know if you're going to be talking about or stuff like that, but I know my friend was raised Southern Baptist and they call dancing sex and up. So they were not going to be buying any of your heavy metal, whatever it was. So they might be the right geography, they might be the right demographic, but they're not going to have that. So you need to find out, where am I going to find these people? So first you start with them. I will say this more than once, viral marketing is just low. And people who have this idea that you are going to have one influencer is going to tweet it out. I mean, we make Rhonda do stuff because, and she got 13 million followers on Instagram, and she'll post something, and we might get 1 or 2 people that invest. Last time we were doing a crowd equity round, and she tweeted something down, and yeah, we didn't get a single investor. Now, what I did do is I followed up with some people and said, yo, and then first of all, it's not nearly as effective as it used to be to have something on YouTube or Twitter, Instagram, because the market is vastly more crowded than it was 10 or 12 years ago. And secondly, if you have 13 million followers or friends on Facebook, whatever it is, and you post something on there, Facebook decides who sees it. So 13 million people don't see it now. Hey. Yes.
That's what I was gonna tell you last week. There was something that came up and I was like, well, in order for you really kind of to see is that you almost have to be a people. You have to be almost kind of, people have to take your content and either do something related to it or see.
Or outrageous.
Yeah, that's just, I intentionally run.
Right. So you need, so unconventional is kind of the key to guerrilla marketing. So one thing I thought was really brilliant, somebody was running for election in Minneapolis, and one of her big things was on families. And she got all the friends that had little kids, like really cute little kids that are 5 or 6 years old. And so when they were out at some parade, she had her electioneering, her canvassing group was about this high. And they would go up to people and say, vote for Alicia, vote for Alicia. And you have to be a really big jerk not to take a flyer from a 5-year-old, right? So that was pretty good. Side loading, conferences hate this, but I have done. That's where you don't pay 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever for a conference, where instead you book a hospitality room in the same hotel, that hotel's probably booked, but book like in Las Vegas, we did this, recorded, so I'm not giving details. But this conference, it was like $10,000 to have a tiny little booth there. We were a little company, we had $10,000. So we got a hospitality suite in a hotel a few blocks away, and then we passed out flyers to people and said, come to our suite, free drinks. And we did get free drinks and we made Rob be a bartender. So you can set up meetings at conferences. I know there's a really big one for charter schools in San Diego. It's super expensive to go, but lots of people I know will find out who's going and then say, oh, are you going to be at this conference? You want to meet up with me? And then they'll just meet a person at Starbucks. So again, saved you $15,000 right there. You're welcome. This, I thought, again, an example of growing up. Since it's Santiago, Chile, if you ever have a chance to go to start Chile, some of you might want to think about it. They take 60 companies a year. And I was one of them. And you're going to come to Chile, they're going to give you rental space, they're going to give you money to hire people, they're going to make connections for you. And all of us went there, and Slantash was one of the guys. He had like those Wi-Fi devices, but this was before they were out, right? So he would give you a device, and your museum or your bus, wherever it was, could have Wi-Fi on it, so that people could stream their movies and stuff like that. And that's what he was selling. And before he got to Santiago, he connected with anybody he could think of on LinkedIn who might be a customer. And he landed in Santiago from India with 26,000 contacts on LinkedIn. And I was so impressed because any of us could have done it. There were 59 other companies there, but none of us thought of it. And he had a good line, hey, I'm from India and I'm in Santiago. And people are like, what? So that's an example of guerrilla marketing, something unconventional that people aren't doing. This is one in most everything in this chapter I agree with. This I am very skeptical of, where it says that traditional marketing, the goal is financial and market share, and entrepreneurial marketing, it's satisfaction and awareness. What did I say about cash flow?
More important than your money.
Thank you. And people all the time offer me, oh, you could do this, it would be good exposure. You know what? I went to the bank and I tried to deposit some exposure to make payroll and they weren't having it. So, and isn't some exposure, it was somebody's outside, they died, don't they say they died of exposure? So I would be very, very careful of anyone who says, oh, well, come do this event for free or you will get exposure. I think that the goal of your marketing is to get money.
Who put the spokes in the picture?
Pardon?
Who put the spokes in the picture?
It's actually from one of our games. There. Now, there are times when you could do something for free, even though I say don't do anything for free. If you are guaranteed a lot of views, the only time I have done that I can think is Google for startups to not give us money, but they're Google. And they sent one of our games out to over 2 million beta testers. So they told us they would do that. They did not back down on it. So that's when you receive valuable non-cash benefits, like inventory. I talk a lot about our company because it's a software company, but there's a lot of restaurants that will do events. And there's some liquor distributor, for example, that sponsor me. And so they don't necessarily get money, but they get cases and cases of whatever this new kind of beer is. We know this because my daughter works in these restaurants and get lots and lots of stuff that the distributors give them for free. So, yeah, there you go. If you want to have an event at your grocery store for free, you may not get money for it, but if they give you all kinds of extra things that you can now sell, that's worth it. So valuable non-cash benefits, not like Groupon coupons. If you're testing a buggy new product, in that case, yeah. When we first came out with our games, we did not charge people for them because they crashed, problems. So if it's something brand new, now hopefully, Jacob, your stuff is not so bad that you're doing people for free and they're testing, that's why you have children. But if it's really buggy, and the other thing is why I picked Wyoming. If you want to do it, do something. I went to the Wyoming Indian Education Summit 3 years in a row because Wyoming is cute. But I was honest about that, right? I wanted to go. We did in the end get one contract out of that, like $50,000. But the profit on that, honestly, did not cover 3 trips to Wyoming. I just wanted to go. And that's okay, right? I mean, what's the point of having your own company if you can't decide those things? But just be honest about that's why it is. And when we took on investors, I quit doing that because I was spending other people's money. So just be honest with yourself about it. Free classes. I mean, you talked about having classes at your store, right? Your beadwork store. That's free, but then people maybe you do the first class for free, but then people come in and check it out, and now they want to buy your stuff because they learn new class. There's a lot of cooking places that do that. They get free cooking classes because they're going to sell you all this really expensive cookware. There's places that do free classes on gardening and farming because they want to sell you all this expensive gardening. So that's why we're going to do it, to get your first customer, to upsell your customers, like I said, to buy this beadwork, buy this cooking class. And maybe you could meet some key partners that way. I've done, like I said, a lot of talks at education conferences when we're selling education software, at statistics conferences when we're doing statistical consulting services. So I might meet some customers there, and I might meet some people that I want to collaborate with. Once everybody's doing it, it's not real marketing. We did when COVID first hit. We're thinking, what are we going to do now? Actually, it's going to be really good for us because it turns out that making software that you could use to learn math on a computer turned out really good when kids were all learning at home. But the first few weeks, our sales had been going kind of like this, and then they just went to nothing, right? Because nobody knew what was going on. School was closed, there was nobody there to buy our stuff. And we thought, how are we going to find teachers? How do we get administrators? Because what we had been doing was going to conferences. I was literally on a plane to a conference, changing planes in Denver when I get a message on my phone, conferences and things. And I turned around and everything shut down. So I said, let's do a webinar. And we did this webinar. We had half a dozen different people we know. We had somebody from Minot State, Native American Center Director, talked about teaching Native American students. I talked about games. Somebody else talked about the Navajo Nation gave a talk, and we had hundreds of people come to this. Well, if we'd done that same thing a year later, we'd be lucky at 20. But at the time, everybody's home and nobody knew what was going on, and I said, let's do a webinar. So it's just like with the viral marketing, you have to get in there first. This is why the guy we hired from the big education company, why the guy they hired from Anheuser-Busch had a problem. Because when you're in a big company, you're doing marketing, you're often managing existing customers. If you're Coca-Cola, you have a lot of customers. You're Sprouts, you have a lot of customers. And so your salespeople, your marketing people just kind of reminding you that the product, they're going to see how you're doing. When you're a new company, you have to get those first customers. And so you have a whole different kind of mindset. And then also, you need to develop some long-term relationships. And I was reading your business model canvases, and a lot of you had some super good ideas on that. Oh, yeah, one of the things somebody had on tribal and customer relationships was put on the tribal website. And I thought, if you're a tribal business, or even if you're a tribal business, that's a really good idea, because there's not going to be 5,000 businesses there. So this is your superpower, and is you can do things that don't scale. Your big advantage, you think you're competing against Coca-Cola, we're competing against 7-Eleven. How do we succeed in that market? And the answer is, you can do things on an individual basis that those bigger companies can't do, because they've got 400 layers of bureaucracy. You know, when we started our company, one of our developers wanted a specific type of software, and he came from the company and he sends me this use case, and here's about this one, and here's what Unreal Engine does, and here's what Unity does, and here's why I think we should do this. And I looked at it and I said, if you want this and it's $300 a month, buy it. That was our bureaucratic process. So you can work with your customers on a way that other people can't. I'll give you 2 examples. When we very first started, our software was budget, and one of our first customers was somebody I knew who lives up in San Francisco, and he couldn't get the software working on his computer. And I happened to be up there for something or other, and I went to his house and I figured it out and I fixed it. Do you know how many people he told the president of the company came to my house personally? It's this most amazing company ever. We had a school in South Los Angeles that couldn't use our software because they were, I kid you not, like 20 versions behind on their browser because they didn't have an IT staff. And I felt so bad for them. I sent somebody from our office to go to that school and update every computer there. But that's the kind of thing that Microsoft could not approve in 14 seconds. So if one of your people has a problem, you know, if you install some part and it doesn't work, right? You don't have to call corporate and get an approval. You could just go down to, I don't know where HVAC parts are bought, probably not O'Reilly Auto Parts, but maybe. But you can go there, you could just go and get another one and swap it out. Say, gee, I'm really sorry. So that's the power you have that other people don't. And the other power you have is you know your community. Like somebody put up there, advertise on the tribal website, and I thought, that's a really good idea. Or at Spirit Lake, I happen to know that almost everybody listens to cable. Cable is the reservation radio station. If you put something on there, people listen to it. Or like I said, high school basketball team, that was a huge deal. And now they've been in the state finals 3 years out of the last 10. So you know those things. You know people in intertribal sports that you go to and say, hey, I'd like to sponsor your team. So you can do things that the big companies cannot do. And as it says, so you think I would never get to this table, but it's happening. So they have to communicate with customers in a really standardized way. They're a big company. This is our policy. Have you ever dealt with companies like that? You just want to shake them. Your policy is stupid. But with you, you can communicate with your customers. If they call you up, you don't have to necessarily go to everybody's house. But if somebody comes into your store and says, man, these shirts are really ugly, you have that interaction, that information right now. It doesn't have to go through 11 other layers. We're going to go through all of these keys here: the product, promotion, price, and place. Those were the original core of marketing. And so now, since we have a lot of things that are done online, I'm going to add these other 3. But all of those, you start with the product, right? If you have a crummy product, you're just lying to people and you're telling them come over and add. All the rest of it is just lies, right? But you ever hear that line about build a better mousetrap and the world will be in a path to your door. You ever heard that one? Well, that's because you're on. So that was a proverb. You build a better mousetrap, the world will be in a path to your door. That's a big lie, so it's just slightly ignorant. In fact, I work in game development. I've known plenty of people who spent all of their money building a really good product, and then they had no money left to market it, and nobody bought it because nobody heard about it. You know, I think I told you before about that book that I wrote, and I was ticked off when we finished it, and the publisher said 6 months before it was in the stores. I'm like, what the heck? And she said, if your book was published tomorrow, how many people would go buy it? And the answer is none, because nobody would know it exists, right? With, yes, product is the number one thing, but you need some money left over in marketing to let people know about your good product. So we're going to go through all of these parts. Now, promotion, Michelle was asking about things like stickers and all that stuff. So promotion is convincing people, like they say it nicely, in terms of communicating benefits to customers. It's letting people know that your product exists and what your value proposition is. And then price is pretty obvious, so what you're going to charge them. Place in channels, some of you in your business model canvas were a little confused. Channel is where people are going to get your product. And basically, there's 4 types of channels that people talk about, like global overall. There is business to business, so we're business to government, those kind of. So you're selling to prison. Microsoft is selling to General Dynamics. So there's business to business sales. There's wholesale, where you're going to go in and somebody's got a huge company where they make tortillas, and they're going to go and they're going to sell 5,000 tortillas to me. So the channels be where you're actually selling. It could be online. And so we'll cover each of these a little bit, but they all have to be connected. So you have a good product, but then you need the rest of this mix to sell it.
Are all 7 necessary for you to have an effective marketing
Well,
strategy?
Generally, the first 4 are considered focused on product,
Mhm.
and the last 3 are focused on service. But I would say for sure, even the 5th one is people, you need good people, you need good customer service. And I really kind of like this in the textbook where it ends up and says, marketing doesn't end with the sale. Because if you sell something and then people have problems with it and they call for tech support, or they call, want a refund, and they get poor service, then that's not going to bode well for your business in the long run. So all the different types of promotion, we're not going to go through every single one of them because I know that you can all read, but there's a few I want to mention. Like I said, radio spots. Now, just do you have reservations? Everybody reservation around here have a radio station? Because a lot of the ones here are smaller, right? Does anybody's reservation for a radio station? Yours does? So,
They play bird songs on it.
do a lot of people listen to it?
People from the rest do.
Well, but that's who you're selling to.
Yeah.
so, right?
Yeah.
There you go. So there's one of your avenues for promotion right there. Newspapers tend to be more bought by older people. Where, you know, even my daughter who was a journalist for 10 years, they don't get a daily paper. They read all their news online. Magazines can be nice because they're very targeted, right? So you could do like a homeowners magazine. I'm trying to think what, you know, you did UFC magazine, probably. No. I have way too many of those kinds of magazines at home. I do. Every magazine Rhonda's ever been, her assistant put together and sent me 3 copies of it. I'm not sure why, because I'm only one person, but whatever. So internet ads are, I have not had very good success with Facebook or Google ads. I've tried both. I think we did Twitter ads, but I will talk about that a little bit. But that's one possibility. That Disadvantage of advertising is it's generally expensive. Now, that's why I mentioned radio ads are nice if you're a small business, because they can be targeted to a small community and a very specific community. And public relations, like we said, about sponsoring charitable events, that's nice, but it's just building brand awareness. It's also difficult with advertising to say if it's really successful for a long time, right? Because you put out an ad, you put a bunch of ads on Google, but how often did you see something on Google? Pops, most just probably ignore those ads, right? But how often did you see something that popped up and you're like, I'm gonna give you one of those, and that's it, you put your phone down and you run out to the store and you buy it. So it's hard to tell unless you've been advertising for a while. Now, we track those things. So we talk about statistics, which we have already established, but I do love. We track those things. So if I put $1,000 in Google ads, I'm going to track for the next month. Did our website visits go up? Did our sales go up? You can track clicks that came into your website, where they came from.
Another big thing about advertising too, or like, how they have all the conferences and stuff like that around here is a booth.
Mhm.
And that's a really big thing because we have a bunch of conferences all over.
Yes.
Exactly what I was thinking for marketing for my thing. Even though I'm kind of far away in California, and so people go out there. So I would just do it anyways and be like, if you ever go out to where it's busy, check out this.
And that's what I thought about Roundabout. I never would have thought they would have been in LA, but that's literally for major.
That's smart.
And it's
because
expensive.
Oh,
The more
really,
we go out, the more
right there.
expensive.
No, a lot of people cannot come on, but you know why? During the pandemic, because LA had all kinds of restrictions, because I live in Santa Monica. In LA County, we had, for a long time, you could not eat indoors. Everybody had to wear masks, and there were places in LA County that checked your vaccination card. So if you didn't want that, you came out to Mondo. Well, I made friends that are like, oh, you should go to Mondo. I'm like, yeah, I would check that. But no, the people who were telling me that were people who were like, I don't want to get vaccinated, I don't want to wear masks, I don't want to do this.
If you don't hurt.
Well, but because
You not want to get vaccinated. That was all just getting sick.
the Darwin Awards.
I mean, I just feel like that's a long stretch for this guy. So, I mean, I don't really look at all the aspects of marketing. So.
Well, the other thing is too, if you live in LA, like it takes me an hour to get from my house to South LA at rush hour, which is, 10 miles away. But if I did on Saturday, it'd take me an hour to get out to Riverside. So people again, it goes back to interest, not just demographics, but people are more used to spending a lot of time in their cars. It's only 2 hours. I spent 2 hours sitting in traffic on Friday and I only got 10 miles. So social media has changed a lot. Also, I was going to get you a flyer, but I didn't. But we have a certificate in social media marketing and management, and one of the classes required for is this one. So you are 3 credits in. So how many get English? All right, English 1. Ooh, so now you have 7 credits in. So there you go. Think about that. But the thing about social media is now it's changed dramatically, right? I mean, if you think about when you were younger, some of you are still younger, but how many things didn't exist? First was Facebook, then Twitter came out, then Pinterest, then Instagram, then TikTok, then Snapchat. So it's been growing and it's being harder and harder to stand up in front. Netflix says it's inexpensive, but it's expensive to get in front of a huge audience. It is time consuming. If you want to do a lot of good content, it takes a while. And I don't know about the huge amount of special expertise, but like our company, we have a person whose job is social media marketing. And she does it from an evolution because all she needs is a phone. So you do have to have people that are committed to that post every day regularly. You need to have a lot of unique content. No one wants so much bad social media. It's basically fire stuff, fire stuff, fire stuff. It's cheap in the sense that they're not charging you to post on social media, but it's hard to rise above the noise.
on social media, comment like, hey, can you check out my clothes? Like, tell me if they're nice. I'm like, yeah. So,
Direct mail can be really expensive. Like I said, building an email list of consumers, then takes some time. I have a friend who, his thing, actually, he sells everything, but he started out doing training courses, videos, CDs for teaching kids sports. He was in the Olympics and he was a three-sport All-American. So he's got some significant credibility. And he says everybody he ever met is in his mailing list. And I email them until they buy or die. So you could do that with email, yes.
Maybe I could do like the.
Now, do they have mailboxes? Because I know like at Spirit Light, everybody picks up their mail at Blue Buildings Administration. So everybody out there picks their mail at their own house. There's not a building where you go.
It depends on where you live. Certain like subdivisions have their own mailboxes and then other places, partners, the rest, you have to go to the post office to get your actual mail.
I don't have a house.
Where do you live?
Street.
Well, because the thing is, if you are in a situation like that, like it's Spirit Lake, I can go up to the post office with a whole stack of flyers and a smile and talk the woman who runs the post office into putting it into every single person's box.
Right.
What I did with my children is I made them all fill out postcards, and because what's the point of having a bunch of children if you can't put a say, Lavanda, this is for you, girl. What's the point of having all these kids if you can't put them to work?
I want to say that at 7 and me, this is the most informational, fun class I've ever been in. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not starting a business, but I want to now. So, thank you guys.
All right,
Bye.
everybody get a picture. So if you don't have a huge mailing, yeah, my first few years, I got a whole bunch of postcards made up, just went down to Plain Palace and had to make up postcards with a picture from one of our games. And I had the list of all of our customers, and I had 3 of my kids were still living at home, and I gave each of them a stack, and I said, fill this out. And so all of these people got things from, thanks so much from Andrea. Lots of them, Julia really improvised, thinking of you. No, it's Christmas. But yeah. So with direct mail, you can actually put I know Jacob talked about putting his family to work.
You make it more.
That's right.
Grandma, get the prize.
Rewards programs, coupons, free samples. So these are all kind of promotions, could be t-shirts, like I said, stickers, any kind of thing like that. Here's a crazy thing. We did 3 Kickstarter campaigns, and the Kickstarters, when you say you're going to do a product and you want people to buy it, right? And if they give you money, you raise enough, you'll make it. And what Kickstarter says is always have a really high level. So we had $10,000. If you if you back this for $10,000, you could be a character in the game. And do you know, every time we had 1 or 2 people that put in $10,000. I mean, I would not have thought that, right? It's a little tricky. We had one game, and it's about like Native American kids, and these people put in money, and they want their grandson to be a character. He's this white, blonde, freckled kid, but so he was something they met.
They met. You show them where to go.
Think about what kind of rewards could you have? Like if you're doing, so you're doing the party store, right? There. So try to think of what kind of rewards, if you refer 6 of your friends, I could do a party for you for free. Or you could add on things, like you mentioned, having party favors, you get extra party favors. If they
Reward card.
So the downside is you have to put in some money, so you have to figure out if you're doing those rewards programs, how much it's going to cost you to do it. You don't want to end up
losing money on. You know, you have to spend $50 or more so you can get a free t-shirt that costs you $5.
What if her business was kind of like Kohl's? You buy so much, you give so much back to them. I mean, that's, because to me, like, it's not something. Like that's how a lot of businesses that went out are still existing. Sears, they still have their credit cards, so they exist, that they have the customer. Maybe that's not bad. But how would you go about doing that?
Like if you buy $50 worth of stuff here, I give you a $5 credit.
No, like if you were to open a line of credit at her store, what would she just do the backing of the financial institution?
Well, yeah, or she could even do it herself, but then you have to worry that it'll actually be paid up. I mean, a lot of stores do that. Paul's, which was the store on Pittsburgh Lake for a long time, they allowed some people to charge, and I guess if you didn't, you know, they allowed you to charge up for a certain amount, and if you didn't pay it, then they would charge you more. And that could, that have to be something you look at from a financial perspective. Do you want to let people, you know, run your account there? Now, USC, I think they made a lot of money that way because they would let you use your school ID to charge anything on campus. But the thing is, a lot of people worked on campus. So let's say you're a student employee, you could go and you could get lunch, you could get things in the bookstore, and then just take it out of your salary. So they didn't have to worry about you paying up because they're just going to take it out of your salary. So personal selling, that is the most expensive, right? Because you need a person to actually go there and talk you into it. And generally, if you're talking about personal sales, you're not talking, and I'm talking about talking somebody into buying something, not a cashier. I think there's different cashier and salesperson, right? If you're selling a house, if you're really convincing somebody to come to college to sell it, right? So it's very intensive, and you need people who know your product. If you look at things like computers or buying really expensive software, it's a lot of money to train them. And when somebody told me, if you have depending on the kind of startup, that your salespeople should be the highest paid people in your company. It's the ones that are bringing money. Now that depends if you're selling cars as opposed to if you're selling candy bars and travel size, you know, shampoo. So we talked a little bit about channels in place. Where are you actually selling your stuff? So there's direct versus indirect. Direct is, I'm a bakery and I'm going and selling stuff to you. So I have a bakery, you come in, you say, here's my $14, and I say, here's your, you know, 3 dozen donuts, thank you very much. Or you could be selling directly on the internet, right? I don't know how many people buy your earrings on the internet, but busy bees eating, what, are you laughing?
I think we should order
So, you know, if you're buying it on the internet, it's still direct. If you make it, then you sell it to a retailer and then they sell it to the customer, that's indirect because the person you're selling to is not the person, the end user. And in that case, you need to maintain relationships with that retailer and then they have to convince people to sell again. So we're going to look at real quick primary and secondary research and target markets. So if you're, you know, one of the things that Michelle asked about is how do you know how much money you're going to make? Your textbook talks about primary research. I would say, unless you had at least one statistics course, maybe that's not the way to go. Because in this case, you're going to go out and you're going to choose a sample, you're going to collect data, you're going to analyze the data, and then you're going to look at these results and make a decision. And I think I mentioned the other day the guy who said to validate his product, he talked to all of his friends and asked them if they would buy this and it was a good idea. And all of his friends said, yes, yes, this is a good idea, you should do it. And then he went and produced it and nobody bought it. And he said, what I validated is I have very nice friends. So just going to the people you know is not necessarily a good sample. So primary research, I would say generally would not be the best idea. If I was going to test if something was going to work, the way I would collect data, let's say I wanted, you're talking about doing a food truck sale. Let's say I were to see if this would sell. I would go out and I would make whatever I'm going to sell, and I would go somewhere in the street and see if people buy it.
Samples.
Yeah.
People-
Or charge, or not even samples. I would charge people and see if they came back. And that, I would say that's probably the most effective type of research if you don't have a real research background. Go see if people actually will pay you money for your stuff before you quit your day job.
Some food trucks do that, they'll give you a sample before you buy. And you're staring at them, and they're like, okay, I'll buy it.
Oh, speaking of food trucks, Night of the Jacks, I know you're all a long way from Calabasas, but it was super fun. I will show you pictures of it. They have a ton of food trucks there, and they have, so do you speak Spanish? So I so down right, oh, they have pumpkin day all day. They have the Night of the Jacks with a mile-long thing with jack-o'-lanterns, and I realized, you know, wonder why they have all this in Calabasas. Calabasas is Spanish for pumpkin, so. Okay, so rather than doing your own primary research, some of the best things might be to look at secondary research. And actually, the Small Business Administration is good for this. The Small Business Administration has offices that is their job. And my view is they're not always the most helpful on a lot of things. But if you need to go in and ask them, can you help me find out how much money the average grocery store makes in a town of 10,000 people? They can probably help you with that.
Okay, I was trying to figure that out earlier and I felt like it was hidden.
Yeah, well,
What if
there's,
you were to go to your tribe, because I know you guys have feasibility studies that are known for public, you can probably pull that out for whatever businesses that they have going on the reservation right now.
yeah, there's, I thought it was somewhere. There's the small business developments, small SBDC, small disadvantaged business centers. Some reservations have these, but the small disadvantaged business centers are supposed to be helping small businesses get started.
Yeah.
Some of them are helpful, some of them are worthless, just like people in general. So, but one thing that they could be helpful for is going through these databases and say, if you want to know for your specific area, how many people live there and what's the average income and what's the average amount they spend on groceries in a year, the SBA office should be able to help with that. So I would go and try getting some secondary research as opposed to doing my own. Here is where you're looking at your market, total available market. So your total available market is how much there is, how many people there are in the entire world or in the entire country who would pay for your thing. So Victoria, you might look at like how many, say you're strictly Native American, how many Indigenous women are there in the entire country who might be formerly incarcerated or might have a addiction problem? So that would be your total available market. And then the thing is, you can't serve everybody in the entire country. First of all, there's no way you can even contact them. So what's your service available market? That would be the geographic area that where you are actually going to try to serve them. So it might just be Riverside County or Riverside City, you know, and Northern San Diego County. So the total available market is everybody that needs that service. The service available market is people within your reach. And the service at Tampa market, so you hear this TAM, SAM, song. TAM is the total available market. And you ever hear people say, oh, well, there's 1 billion people in China. If we can only get 1% of them, we'll have 1 million people. I just want to stop. It doesn't work. You're not, people say that to us all the time. Oh, you're going to teach English. You should be in India, you should be in China. Lots of those people want to learn English. That's true. Do you know how many people I know in China? No. So it's not really good marketing. And then don't be naive. Your target market or the service obtainable market is how many of those people in the total available market do you think you can actually get? Do you think every single person that has a party is going to go to Rocket State? Do you think that every single person that does beadwork is going to go buy from now? Every single person, oh my daddy, and probably not, you know, for whatever it is. So what proportion do you think that you think that? And then if the total available market is, you know, say it's 60,000 people, and each of those people on the average is going to pay $1,000 a month for it, right? So that would be $60 million. But you're not going to get 60,000 people. There's maybe 1,000 people in your demographic that are in this area. So that brings it down from 60 million to 1 million. And out of those 1,000 people, you're going to be able to serve in an average year 20. So that's bringing down, okay, it's $1,000 a month.